Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Level Up Your Mental. My name is Ariel and I'm a licensed mental health counselor. And as you guys can see from the quote today, fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. And the reason why I have this quote up is because I want to talk about fear today. And the reason I want to talk about fear is because I feel like that word and that action and what can come from being fearful can really stop people from getting to their goals or getting where they need to be because they are afraid of what's going to happen, or the outcome of things. They let their fear and the way that they're feeling stop them from doing stuff. And I want to just talk about, what is fear? What does that feel like for people? How do you overcome that? What is the point of overcoming it? Fear is something that's supposed to really be like a level of protection, but when you fall too deep into it and you let the fear overcome you, it really stops you from doing a lot of things. And I think that is the issue for some people. So we're going to start off with, what is the definition of fear? The definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. And this is why in therapy we tend to talk about irrational fears, because sometimes there are legit reasons where you should be fearful, you should be scared of something that could happen, but a lot of times what we can do is really just plan, and hopefully the things that we have learned to use to help us in these instances can be able to push us through those fears. How does fear relate to your mental health? When you are very fearful about things in your life, it tends to make you stagnant. It tends to make you feel comfortable where you are, and you don't want to move because you're afraid of what could happen. But what have we heard from a lot of people is that a lot of people grow once they're able to get out of their situation. Once you're able to get out of that comfort zone, you really get to expand your wings and you get to see what you're capable of. Everything in life has moments where it's going to be scary and you're not going to know what's going on, but it's okay. But it's also important to dig into these fears and figure out, what is it that I'm fearful of? What is it that is really making me scared? Because a lot of times it's not even the direct situation that we're afraid of, but it's more so the outcome of what could possibly happen. Knowing that there's multiple things that could come from it, a lot of times we're very focused on the negative or the thing that we should be fearful of. And so there are instances, yes, where your fear will activate the fight or flight response because your body is responding to what your brain is telling it, and you are telling your brain that you are scared of something. And so your brain's like, oh, we're scared, so what are we going to do? Are we going to run, or are we going to fight? And for a lot of people, running is a little bit more easier than to actually sit there and deal with the problem. That's why for a lot of people, they tend to run away from things, or they try to ignore things or any of the stuff that makes them scared, because it's so much harder to sit in those unpleasant feelings than to actually just run away and not have to deal with it at all. But what have we always seen in other situations, or just in life in general? When you don't address things, they're gonna come up in other ways, in other forms. I mean, this is just what happens. And so we have to be open-minded when it comes to these things that we're scared of. Address those feelings. Don't sit there and act like the fear isn't going to happen. Fear is a normal human reaction. Everybody deals with fear, but it's just a matter on how you respond to it. Are you going to keep running away from these things, or are you going to let these situations build you and make you a better person coming from them, right? So there is a clear distinction between healthy fear, which is mainly just you protecting yourself and protecting the things around you, and an unhealthy fear where it's excessive and it's irrational. And when I say healthy fear, I mean, let's just say that your neighborhood is likely a neighborhood that tends to get robbed because of just where you are and the accessibility, right? So you are fearful where you are because the potential of somebody coming into your home, which is your safe place, and taking something of yours. That is a valid fear because of other things that have happened in your neighborhood. you could potentially be one of those things. Now, that's not saying that you should just live in fear all the time, but more so try to plan and try to figure out what you can do to protect yourself, i.e. cameras around the house, or having some level of protection in the home when you're there, being cautious of what you're posting so people don't know. Like, that type of stuff is like, okay, that is protective fear. That is healthy fear. That is something that you should be fearful of. Now, irrational fear comes from a lot of things that make people anxious. Sometimes it can come from situations that people have seen happen to other people, especially with now the way that we are so exposed to everything in social media. People are getting exposed to a lot of things that you might not really have thought would have happened to you, but because you saw it happen to somebody online, you're kind of thinking, okay, that could possibly happen to me. And so you're thinking of all these different scenarios of stuff, and so that will hold you back from actually dealing with these things, because you're like, there's a potential outcome that it could hurt me, or that I could end up in a situation where I don't want to be. And yes, you could, but what are the odds of that happening? And is that fear greater for you than actually going out and doing the things that you want to do? If you feel like your fear is something that is rational and nobody can change your mind about it, and you feel comfortable and complacent where you are because this fear is protecting you and keeping you where you're at, that's fine. Nobody's going to push you out of that. But then I think there's that other part of it too for some people, that, okay, your fear is protecting you, but when was the last time you got into any type of situation where that fear occurred? What is the possibility of that thing happening again? And is there a possible way that you can plan for this thing, so if something happens, you feel more prepared than when you're not and you get more fearful? And so there's a clear distinction from what is a healthy fear and what is excessive and what is irrational, and what is it that you should feed into and what you shouldn't. And so I think for some people, the fear is just so much larger than wanting to go out and do something, that they let that fear consume them to the point where they will get stuck where they are because they don't want to move forward, because they don't know what's going to happen. And that alone will stop people from doing the things that they want to do, right? There's also different types of fear, right? So there's short-term fear, situational fears, like I said before, as far as public speaking, spiders, going to big crowded areas and having to deal with that. That is a short-term fear, because you're not dealing with that every single day. Those are more so like in a situation where you have to go do something and you're more so afraid of what the outcome could be being around those type of situations. There's also chronic fear that's ongoing and long term. So those are more so like generalized anxiety disorder for the people, like they get anxious no matter where it is that they go. It could be from a crowd of people, it could be because of traffic. Those are like generalized fears, as well as like phobias. Again, people who have long-term phobias of certain things like animals or certain things like that, those are chronic fears, because those are things that are very crippling for those people, and it takes a while to unlearn those habits so that they can get back to understand, like, yeah, you can be fearful of these things because it's something that you don't know, but how do you protect yourself in the instance that you do run into these things, not stopping you from actually going out and enjoying certain stuff because you're afraid of running into this animal or whatever the case is. And then there's the existential fear, which I think some people tend to forget about. It's the deep-rooted fears related to life's purpose, death, and meaning. There are a lot of people in this world that are afraid of death. They don't want to talk about it. When funerals come around, they don't know how to respond, which is completely normal. All we know about death is that we are no longer going to be here. We don't know what happens to our soul, our mind, our body, in the sense of everybody's culture is different. Everybody has their own meaning of what's going to happen. But I think for some people who don't align with those things, or people who do align with those things, they're afraid of, like, the things that I have done, how does that relate to what's going to happen to me after that? Or, what is going to happen in this world in a couple of years? We don't know. Like, there are people who truly live in those fears, and those are things that can happen. So when you experience fear, it comes out in different ways for different people. A lot of times when people are fearful, they get stuck in the situation as far as they don't know how, they can't move, they don't know how to respond. There's also other people who tend to feel it everywhere. They have increased heart rate, muscle tension, they are tightening up because they're fearful. And so these might be responses that your body might have when you are in a fearful situation, right? So fear impacts your mental health because it can lead you to a lot of different diagnoses like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and some type of avoidance behaviors. A lot of times people will avoid situations, they'll avoid people, they'll just avoid certain things because they're fearful what's going to happen. But the issue is, if you keep doing that, a lot of times it will lead to isolation, and sometimes that will lead to depression, and you're just building onto a lot of stuff when there are tools out there to be able to help you to get to the point where, yeah, these situations are a little bit dicey and you don't know what's going to happen, but if you have the proper tools and the proper stuff to face them, then you will feel way more better and way more equipped than to kind of just go into these situations head first and not know what the outcome is going to be. So when it comes to the anxiety part, we try to teach people, where is that fear coming from? Is that something that has happened to you before, and so this is how you respond because that is valid? Something happens to you, like you get raped or you get robbed or something like that, where you've had experience. Of course you are going to have triggering stuff. So the whole point with going into getting services and therapy and stuff is to not invalidate the fact that you are fearful in these things, but more so teach you how to process them in your brain and to be able to have the tools to deal with your emotions if those type of situations occur, or if you tend to have those symptoms again. Same thing with depression. If you don't have a connection with people and you're always by yourself and you're fearful of things and you just stay to yourself, you can isolate yourself, which can create a lot of negative emotions. And so we teach people how to deal with those thoughts, understanding that your thoughts are your thoughts. It's not something for you to automatically respond to or something that you have to make an action towards right now. The way that you respond to situations are important because your brain is a very strong muscle that is capable of doing things that you couldn't even imagine. But if you tend to hold yourself back, you won't ever really experience that. And so you have to be willing to want more for yourself and understand that my fear is valid and that's fine, but do I want more out of this? Do I want to move past the place that I have been? These chronic fears and these things that are triggering me and these past situations that I keep thinking about, they're part of my story, yes, but I can't allow them to stop me from living my life because of what I have been through. And so as you move forward, you want to break the cycle, overcome the fear. And with doing this, especially within therapy, we teach people different techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, which really teaches you about reframing your thoughts to reduce your fear-based reactions. And so with an example of CBT, you might be the type of person who is fearful of going to the grocery store because it's so many people, it's so crowded, and God forbid something happens, I might get trampled, somebody might come in and shoot up the place, I don't know. And so we will teach you how to reframe those thoughts, like, yeah, this is a possibility it could happen, but how do you respond? How do you manage your fears? If you want to go to the grocery store and it's crowded, maybe trying to figure out other ways, like going in the morning when there's less people, going later in the day when there's less people, making a list of stuff. And also, like for myself, I will check out the apps for the stores that I'm going to, like Walmart will have the specific aisles of the items and the stuff, so that way I'm not spending a whole bunch of time walking around the place. I know what I need to get, I know where it is, and I can just be in and out. When you don't know what you're facing, you're more fearful of what's going on. And so if you plan ahead of time and you try to figure out what's going to work from you, it makes the situation a little bit more easier going into than to just dive in head first and you don't know how to respond. And so CBT teaches you how to deal with that, and mindfulness and meditation can help you manage your fears by staying present and reducing your overall thinking. I think sometimes people think that they're going to get over fear by acting like it's not there and trying to move past it. If anything, that makes it worse. Trying to push something away and act like it's not there will never make it any better. If anything, you're really just trying to push it away and act like it's not there and storing it for a later day, but that can't happen. You know, you're human, things happen and you have to react. And so, yes, you're going to be fearful in situations. So mindfulness and meditation teaches you how to respond to your body when you are in a fearful situation. What breathing techniques can you do? How do you listen to the responses in your body? How to slow down your heart rate? Things like that to help you be in the moment and be present, because there's going to be situations where you can't run away from your fear and you have to learn how to deal with it. But when you're fearful, you don't know how to respond, and so you're literally scared and you're frozen. And so meditation and mindfulness really teaches you how to center yourself and learn how to deal with the symptoms that come from the fear, and then how do you respond to that fear to be able to move forward, because you don't want to get stuck. And then also making sure that you are having self-compassion for yourself. You know, some people are able to deal with their problems faster than others. Other people, it takes a longer time. And so you have to treat yourself with kindness, especially during moments of fear and stress, because not everybody deals with those things the same way. Like I said before, some people have a longer time processing their fears, and so it takes them a longer time to overcome them. But at the end of the day, if you treat yourself with kind words and you understand, okay, I'm fearful right now, how do I respond to it? You are more likely to find a way to get out of that situation and being fearful than to be hard and you're just like, oh my god, what am I fearful about? This doesn't make any sense. I should be better than this. You don't want to be more of a negative person to yourself, because it doesn't help with the situation. So learn to be more self-compassionate with yourself about situations that you're fearful for. You're a human. Everybody is fearful of something. We might not all be fearful of the same things, but we all have our certain fears, and we have to just be kind with ourselves and understand that it is a process to be able to move through those things, especially if it's something that you have been through before and you're just fearful of it happening again. So with it all, fear is a normal human reaction, right? But it's important to learn how to manage it. If you don't learn how to deal with fear now, you have to learn how to deal with it at some point in your life. You can't run away from all your problems and your emotions. At the end of the day, emotions are part of every human. We all have these emotions. Now, we all might deal with them differently, and we all might have a different reaction and intensity differently. But at the end of the day, we are all dealing with these emotions in some sort of way or fashion. And if you don't learn how to deal with it now, it's only going to get worse as you progress through life, because you are going to have other situations where you're fearful. And so you need to learn what works best for you to learn how to manage those emotions and get yourself back to a place like, okay, I'm scared. Yes. How do I process this? Do I need to do some deep breathing right now? Do I really just need to talk to myself and understand that, okay, what I'm fearful about is valid, but how do I move forward? And so once you're able to get to that point, then you can start taking action towards managing your fears and then moving forward with, okay, what do I do next? You know, don't get stuck in that fear and not being able to move forward. And, you know, just making sure that you're using your resources. There's so many resources now. You don't have to go to therapy if you can't afford it and it's not something you're ready for. But there's a lot of resources out there online that will be able to help you. You can look up CBT coping skills online and find free ones. There's so many resources like myself and other people that are online that give helpful videos to help people. So if it's something that you want to overcome and you want to move forward for and that you're ready for, then yes, there are resources online and there are people that can help you. But understand that fear is a normal human emotion, and the only way to deal with it or deal with emotions is learn how to sit in them and manage them, and then move forward and make an action plan. And so I want to thank you guys for watching another video. Let me know if there's any other topics that you would like me to get into, and I will continue creating the content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.